There is something refreshing about old games, especially those from the simpler times. The days of the 8-bit micros and 16-bit home computers. Back then, loads of games were launched without much fanfare or fuss. Some of these games were brilliant, and others were rubbish. But Kung Fu Kid is one of the brilliant ones. Back when Sega were taking over the console market in Europe, they were knocking out games at a relentless pace. Most of these games were simple, but that didn't make them bad games. They just didn't get as much attention as some of their arcade games, that's all. Most people would have wanted a Sega Master System way back when, in large part to their huge arcade presence. But Sega were not always just about those arcade hits. They showed they could make an original game that was great as well. Kung Fu Kid is such an addictive little game, it's hard to see why it didn't get as much attention as it deserved. Personally, this was one of my favourite games on the system, and I remember trying to best the thing along with my mates in the summer of 1988. And none of us wanted to put it down until we had done so. Don't forget that I grew up in Scotland, so when good weather did put in an appearance, you wanted to make the most of it. But this game kept us all inside for hours at a time. It was that good. Games don't get much simpler than this. You have 2 buttons, one for jump, the other for attack. You move from left to right, knocking away anything that gets in your path. Or you can just jump over them, if that's your thing. And when the screen scrolls no more, you face a level boss. No level boss music, no announcement, nothing like that. You just get stuck in. And once you defeat them, it's a case of rinse and repeat. And that's it. And in the 1980s, this was brilliant, and it still is, to be fair. I hadn't played this game for many a year, and when I started playing it for this video, I got this right heavy dose of nostalgia, especially when the title screen appears. That music just brings back so many happy memories for me. The Sega Master System did not have the best sound around, and in fact, most games on a Master System sounded pretty bad. And Kung Fu Kid still sounds bad, but the tunes themselves are very upbeat and catchy, and you find yourself humming them hours after playing the game. Well, some of them at least. The sound effects are the usual variety of Sega farts. But back in 1988, nobody cared too much, especially as the game was just lots of fun to play. Visually, it's very simplistic and basic. With the very small colour palette of the Master System, it was hard to produce top quality visuals. But in all fairness, there is nothing wrong with the visuals in the game. Basic, yes, but at the same time functional and better than average. The game isn't very large, and it wouldn't be. Being housed on a 1 megabit cartridge, it's fairly small, but it's by no means a pushover. It's actually quite tough. Now, I do remember quite vividly beating this game when I was a young whippersnapper, but I didn't remember how long it took me to beat it. And this time around, I was taken aback by the challenge. Something else I forgot was the very frustrating boss gauntlet at the end. Each boss is treated like a level in its own, but if you lose, you go all the way back to the first one in the gauntlet, which was a real pain. But then, do you really want a game that is a total pushover anyway? I don't think so. Even though this game was not a full price game, I think it was around £15. It wasn't a game I purchased. The price of Master System games was a little steep for my parents, especially compared to the Commodore 64. And considering that most of my Commodore 64 games were backups, I never paid full price for them either. But I was able to play this game simply because a mate of mine knew someone else with a Master System, and we agreed a swap for a few days. I think I gave the guy Alien Syndrome, which was my only full price game at that time. But Alien Syndrome was a game I didn't have a lot of patience for anyway, so I was glad that someone else wanted to play it. And in those days, swapping games with schoolmates was a tough barter. If you had a crap game, nobody would want to swap, not even for a few days. So you had to have a game that was comparable to each other. So imagine my relief when this guy was okay to do the swap. And I think Kung Fu Kid is a way better game than Alien Syndrome, so I was well happy. And that also explains why my mates and I played it quite a lot, even when the weather was nice outside. You didn't want to borrow a game and only play a small amount of it, you wanted to beat it. That way, you could boast to your mate that it was easy, as you get your own game back. I really do miss these simple kind of games. Gaming today is all about DLC, microtransactions, a billion different game settings, and hour after hour of cutscenes. It's good to walk away from that from time to time and play games from a far simpler era. If not for the enjoyment, then for the appreciation of just how easy kids were entertained back in the day. I definitely recommend you play this game if you can. It's short, addictive, and fun. Just like A Line of Charlie. And that was my look back at Kung Fu Kid. And as always, a massive thank you to everyone who has subbed or commented on my channel and videos. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.